I've worked with people who are incarcerated for probably over 20 years since I was in law school, and a big chunk of that was just focused on women. So I'm really honored to be here tonight. Thank you for asking me to do it. So I'm going to ask everyone on the panel, if you don't mind, just to tell the audience your name and a little bit about the organization and the work that you do. Do you want to start, Melissa?
Sure. My name is Melissa Hoover. I'm the case manager for Sheber's transitional program here in Claremore and Tulsa. And we do work transitioning women out of prison and substance abuse, as well as job training for women as well.
My name is Rhonda Bayer, and I'm the founder of Sheber's, but I work for a nonprofit where I recruit mentors to walk beside these women when they get out of prison for at least a year, and I'm an advocate.
My name is Morgan Hale. I'm the program director of Project Commutation. Stephanie briefly touched on this. We are a program of Justice Link. However, we focus solely on incarcerated individuals. In Oklahoma, we provide free legal representation in front of the Pardon and Parole Board and in district courts across the state. And then we also offer reentry services so that men and women coming out of DOC can be successful when they reintegrate and have that needed support.
Hello, I'm Lisa Black. I work for Justice Link. We help individuals navigate the criminal justice system before they get to prison to hopefully prevent that. And it's my calling, my passion, and I love it.
I'm Ellen Stackable, and I'm the founder and executive director of Poetic Justice. And so all those photographs you see up there came out of a program that we started. One of our volunteers in California is a fashion photographer, and she had a dream of if women that we work with could choose how they were going to be portrayed to the world instead of their mugshots. And so we've been able to show the same show quite a few places. In California, even at Mabel Bassett, we did a one-day art show, which was a lot. We work with women at therapeutic and restorative writing and arts. Not only here in Oklahoma, but California, Oregon, and even Tijuana, Mexico.
Okay, so Ellen, we're going to stick with you for a minute. You explained a little bit about poetic justice and what you do. Why is that important for women? Why is storytelling and creative expression important for the women that you serve?
Well, I think storytelling is important for anyone, but in particular for women who are incarcerated who, if you think about the hierarchy of life, they often feel like they have been at the bottom of every hierarchy. And they can feel like they don't have a voice, that no one listens, no one cares. And also storytelling enables them to process a lot of the trauma they've been through. We provide a safe place for them, if they choose to dig deep and find some healing. And then in county jail, it just provides them a safe space and a way to just really, that's trauma central when you're in county jail. And so it really provides a place and a time for them to just have a sense of hope and a sense of their own worth.
So in addition to the impact on the women who participate in it, have you seen an impact on the public when they see the work of the women?
Yes. One of the analogies I like to use is, you could say one of the poems in there, somebody might say, well, why would that make a difference? Well, think about a pebble in a pond and the ripple effect. And I believe that storytelling can have a ripple effect. There are people that are passionate about going in front of the state legislature. There's others that are passionate about being in the legal field. I'm passionate about providing a space for stories to be heard. And so whenever we can, we enable that to happen. And I think once you've heard someone's story and see their picture, you'll never view incarceration the same way.
And so Lisa, well, I'm going to share a little story about Lisa. So I've seen a lot of women who have been a part of Poetic Justice and really how it changes their life. Well, I was at a conference and this beautiful woman walks in and speaks for an hour, an entire hour, sharing her story and about being a mother while incarcerated, and it was just so beautiful. And maybe 9 months later or so, there was a job opening and someone mentioned this woman named Lisa, and I said, oh my God, I know who that is. I mean, I was jumping up and down. I was so excited because she had such grace and she was so dignified and it was so moving. So anyway, that's how I first met Lisa. So Lisa, I don't want to give away any piece of your story. Can you share your story about how you got involved with Poetic Justice and what it meant to you?
Yes, in 2016, I was doing time at Mabel Bassett, and I know this new group started at Poetic Justice, and I was a part of many groups there. I just worked at the college room, helping the girls get ready for college, and I didn't trust Ellen. I didn't trust her at all, and none of us did, but slowly but surely, it was more than just being heard. I know I said, it was like you see me, you know, but then I was like, no, I didn't feel like you see me, you saw me, you heard me, you listened, and the trust started, and I don't know, Poetic Justice truly led me to my passion. You got me to Stephanie got me to Justice Link, and I don't know, just amazing. I never missed a meeting, and I can't advocate enough. Anytime they ask me to come somewhere for Poetic Justice, I'm gonna be here, because it was cathartic, it was, like you said, a sense of healing, and just mad respect for everything that this lady does.
I agree. It's just so funny. I have these questions written down, and you all sat in the right order. Morgan! I could have skipped around in my questions. So you're an attorney, and you're an amazing attorney, amazing advocate. I would hire you to be my attorney as an attorney. So as many people probably know, Oklahoma has one of the highest female incarceration rates. We are not number 1 anymore, but we were for about 27 years. But we're still like top number 3 now. So I mean, it's awful. Yeah, but for 27 years, we were the number 1 incarcerated women in the world. So can you share a little bit about how you've seen firsthand how the system impacts women?
Yes. So, as Stephanie just said, you know, being one of the highest incarcerators in the nation also means in the world. And to really think about that, and you look around the women in your communities, like, we don't have worse women in Oklahoma than anywhere else. Unfortunately, a lot of these women who end up incarcerated are impoverished, do not have the kind of support that they need, have very limited access to real resources that make a difference. Unfortunately, mothers here are prosecuted at a much higher rate than anywhere else in the nation. We also send people to prison about 70% longer than any other state in the nation for drug crimes, nonviolent drug crimes. There's a lot of factors that go into this. Unfortunately, Oklahoma has a long way to come when it comes to, first of all, being not one of the top incarcerators in the world, but also just treating women and assisting women in things like being a mother instead of prosecuting and blaming and shaming. We have made some progress. There have been some good criminal justice reforms on the horizon, and we've achieved a lot in the last few years, but sadly we do have a very strong district attorney presence in this state that are really advocating to kind of roll those things back, which means incarcerating people for nonviolent drug crimes or property crimes, low-level offenses for longer, and keeping women in prison longer, which, as we know from personal experience, seeing it play out, and then also just a ton of statistics, women being incarcerated just adds to generational trauma. It is not good for the children of the home. It is unfortunately not always rehabilitative, and in DOC right now, we just don't have the resources. They don't have the resources to supply true rehabilitation for a lot of the issues that women who are incarcerated are facing. And another fun fact is that women who are incarcerated face higher rates of trauma, actually higher than people who've served in wartime. So it's a lot of trauma, a lot of opportunities to heal and grow, and incarceration is not the answer to that.
So you mentioned that you're an attorney for project commutation. What is a commutation?
Yes, a commutation is a really fascinating kind of niche legal thing. It actually is an enumerated power in the Constitution, the Oklahoma Constitution, and it is an avenue for you to get a reduced sentence if you have an excessive sentence. So like I just said, a lot of excessive sentencing here in Oklahoma around nonviolent drug crimes is the easiest example. So if you were excessively sentenced on a crime, you can go in front of the Pardon and Parole Board, which is where I come in. I will file an application for someone, lay out legal reasoning, work with our reentry team, which is a very key part, so that the Pardon and Parole Board knows that they have a reentry plan and they have resources and support on the outside after coming out of the Department of Corrections. And then if they make it through the process, which is pretty lengthy, then it goes to the governor and he has the final say. So I have to, for a client, I have to file an application, have them docketed. They have to get 3 out of 5 favorable votes. There's 5 Pardon and Parole Board members in Oklahoma. They have to not do that once, but twice. And then their recommendation is solely a recommendation and it ends up on the governor's desk and he gets the final say. Now, some people, an easy example is if you're serving life on drugs, governor can cut you down to 10 years. He can cut you to 20. They have pretty wide discretion on that. So obviously can make a very large impact on how much time you're doing on your sentence.
Wait, you mean in Oklahoma, people are in prison for life for drugs?
Correct, yes.
What?
Yes, I have 2 cases that just passed first stage commutation in January of 2025. They're doing life without parole. That means a slow death sentence for trafficking drugs. That is the reality of the situation. This is why reform is really important, because even though there were law changes back in 2018, these people were charged just before that, just before the law changed, and it wasn't totally retroactive. So yes, there are people in prison who could die for a nonviolent crime.
I think one thing, I know I'm not on the panel, but I think one thing that people don't understand a lot of is that if you have a prior felony conviction, you have a sentence range of up to life on almost all nonviolent charges. So really, you have the potential to serve life sentences for so many nonviolent charges. It's not just drug charges. And we have really, really excessive sentences in Oklahoma. They might be lawful, they might be statute, they may be fine under the statute, but they're really, really lengthy. Okay, one more question for you. What misconception do you think people have about women who are seeking commutation?
Okay, yeah.
There's probably a lot.
Yeah, a lot. There are. I feel like the biggest misconception I feel is, well, first I get a lot, oh, you represent innocent people. No, I don't. And honestly, that there's room for that, there's space for that. People do that work. I don't want to do that work. You don't have to be innocent in the eyes of the law for me to find you extremely worthy to not die in prison. I think a lot of people say, of women and men, but especially women, people are really hard on women, especially if they're mothers and they commit a crime that then leaves their children at home without them. People are very harsh and they're very quick to say things like, well, they committed the crime, so they gotta do the time, right? Sure, if the time was fair. Sure, if they were getting anything out of the time. Sure, if they had, I don't know, support, resources, therapy, anything that would actually benefit them so that when they come out, they can correct the things that landed them there in the first place. Unfortunately, people are just, can be, I don't think it's intentionally cruel. I think people just, we have this kind of perception of women and of mothers and, well, how dare they have made this mistake to land them in this situation.
Okay, Rhonda and Melissa, first of all, I want to just let them know the work that these 2 women do is absolutely amazing. It is so hard. I have witnessed so many women getting out of prison, and I know you all can speak up this much more than I can, but there are so many obstacles, and it is really, really tough, and you give women so much hope. And it makes my heart so happy when women say that they know you, because I know that they're going to get supported, and it makes me so happy. So anyway, thank you for all the work you all do. what are the most significant challenges that women face? I know there are a lot, but what do you see as the most significant? Either one of you.
I'm gonna let her answer that, but one thing I want to say is we're gonna say like whenever I first met you, Stephanie, we were helping a woman that got 40 years for failing drug court in Delaware County. Okay, so when she talks about these excessive sentences and these life sentences, anybody ever been to Jay, Oklahoma? Okay, there's nothing there. There's no jobs. There's nothing there. It's like a hole, a sunk pump. I mean, it's just like a hole. And a mom with 3 children failed a drug court. You know why she was in drug court? For buying 2 boxes of Sudafed. So people, when you're poor, you'll just about do anything to put bread on the table. So she bought 2 boxes of Sudafed, $5 each box, and someone had paid her $50 to buy those 2 boxes. So she gets arrested for buying 2 boxes of Sudafed because it is illegal. She gets drug court, and she fails a drug test. And we revocate her for 40 years and left 3 little children without a mom. And I don't know about you, but when I heard that story, it was like, hell no. Excuse me, but that's just how it was. And so thankfully, you were working with Glenn, and y'all were able to come in and work and get that case. So, I mean, when she says these excessive sentences, it's not an exaggeration. We go above and beyond in punishing. But now obstacles, I'll let you answer that question.
So I think that some of the biggest obstacles that women face coming out of prison is stigma that's attached to having a felony record. The other thing is a lack of support if they don't go to a place like our program. And there's tons of very good programs in the state of Oklahoma, but a lack of support kind of leaves you floundering on your own. And my experience is, even since the Sarah Stitt bill passed, and the Sarah Stitt bill actually requires that women leaving incarceration, or any inmate leaving incarceration in the state of Oklahoma, has proper identification. Only about 50% of my clients coming to me have proper identification.
I'm actually surprised it's so high. That's because it's getting higher, isn't it?
It is actually getting, and it has in the last 6 months gotten a little higher. But that means no birth certificates, no social security cards, no identification, which makes it almost impossible to find a job. On top of anything. On top of the stigma that's already attached when you have a felony record to trying to find a job. But I do feel like one of the biggest issues that women especially face, I really do believe, is the support that they need. That if they go home, oftentimes you're up in the same situation over and over again. Most of our women come, and I'll be honest, most of our women's biggest problem is men. And without a good support system, we end up right back in the same situation that we were in. So.
Employment is hard. I will share just a little. I know I'm not on the panel, but Justice Link is a program under Tulsa Community Foundation, which is one of the more progressive organizations in our state. Truly, I have hired 6 individuals who are formerly incarcerated to work for me, and I'm so proud of that. And actually, truly, if I could clone every individual I've hired who's been incarcerated, I would, because they are the most amazing people, and all the other employers are so dumb for not hiring them. But all that to say is that Tulsa Community Foundation is wonderful and very progressive and open-minded, but I have had to really advocate for each person that I've hired with questions about what actually happened in that case and the facts surrounding it and where are they now. And I mean, luckily I am able to do that, and they will listen to me because they know I'll quit before they tell me I can't hire someone who's formerly incarcerated, because I will. But you know, not every place is like that. And so that being one of the most progressive places, I think most employers will just look and, you know, look you up and say, oh gosh, don't forget that. You know, armed robbery, no, sorry.
Well, and a lot of our women lack significant job skills. We have women come to us all the time who've never had real jobs, who spent years running the streets, selling drugs or doing drugs, really bad backgrounds, bad family situations, and never had a driver's license or never had a job. And if you've never had a job and you're 30 years old, you don't know how to show up to work on time to get along with people. And so some of the work that we're able to do is to teach some of those basic job skills to women through our coffee shops.
Which is amazing. And I think sometimes too, some women that I've met who I've interviewed have not put anything that they've done while they were incarcerated on their resume because of fear. And then when I talk to them, I hear about the amazing things they've done. I say, oh my gosh, you have worked so hard. Those things are so hard to do while you're incarcerated. You need to put that on their resume, but they're terrified too, because then someone's going to know that they were incarcerated. Anyway, so Rhonda, can you tell us more a little bit about She Brews and Stand in the Gap? Because it really is cool and it's amazing.
Well, She Brews is a local coffee shop, and it started in Claremore. We've been able to expand to Tulsa, but it was created because the first thing, I was a woman in prison, and so when I got out, I just wanted to get my kids back. I wanted to be a mom because I felt like my children deserved that. Not that I deserved it because I blew it, but they deserved it. And I knew the obstacles of trying to get your kids back and be employed and everything. And so out of all of this experience came an idea, if I create a job, because it started housing in Claremore, we would go into prison, invite the women to come and live in Claremore, but this is in 2008. And we were not that we were not a felony-friendly community. And so the women couldn't even get a job at Taco Bell. I mean, we were not hiring them. So I thought, well, we'll start a coffee shop. And if you drink coffee, it gives you caffeine and you want to talk. And you'll talk to the women and you'll learn their story and you'll learn that it could be your friend, your sister, your mom. You know, these women were normal women. We just got stuck. And then if that happened, that they would give them a chance. And so that's how our job training program began. And teaching the women how to have job skills, because if you have never had a job, you don't know what that means. We've had a lot of people, Shantae on the front row, we were here first for a paycheck, weren't we? We're so proud of Shantae. Y'all don't know Shantae, you should meet her. But also the value of mentors, because the journey's hard. It's hard to come out of prison and start over. And so sometimes you need these cheerleaders cheering you on, reminding you that you can make it. And knowing it from experience, and just taking experience and building a program on it to give back. Our big goal is children. So we've been able to help over 300 children get out of the system and be reunited with their moms. And the majority of the moms, I mean, we're not 100%, but we're pretty high, and that the majority of our mothers, because of the help of the mentors and stuff, they've continued and they're still raising their kids today. And we have 2 women that are at RSU getting their masters.
Well, that's
One,
cool.
I know, one started her internship now at DOC as a therapist.
Wow.
She got the approval today. Yeah, so we love that partnership with RSU, but yeah, we have, I don't know, like 9 women enrolled. We have a lot of women enrolled in college, don't we?
I think 9 graduates or current clients combined
Yeah.
currently enrolled at RSU.
That's amazing.
But that kind of that bridge with the coffee shop helped with Dr. Rice, Larry Rice. He came in and helped bridge that gap here. So it was just really good to see a community partnership come around that coffee shop.
As far as the coffee shop, I just want to say too, one of the problems is we love to hide people away where they can't be seen. If you think about where the jail is, where you think where prison is, they're in out of the way places. And one of the, I just think it's delightful irony that the She Brews in Tulsa is now where we have the Tulsa Farmers Market. And the Tulsa Farmers Market, if you haven't ever gone, I would encourage you to, because it's crammed with people in the summer from every part of town. And they're all going to the She Brews right there. And so it's a way, again, for storytelling to happen. For people who maybe have had no contact with anyone who's been incarcerated before, they walk into She Brews and they're transformed.
It is true, and I think that's one of the misperceptions of the public, is that people who are in the criminal legal system are bad. There, you know, there are other people, we don't know who they are, and there's been so many times where, you know, I have been in the public with someone who's been incarcerated, and people say, oh wow, they're so nice and articulate. Well, yes, they're people. I mean, it's so insulting, but it's also, people do need to understand that we're all people.
I wrote a children's book called Mommy's Not Bad, which was a pop-up book featured about how we're people too. We're just trying to get back to our kids.
Can you talk a little bit about, would you mind sharing what it's like to be a mom?
Oh man, you gotta do the work, especially when you have access to your children. I was so fortunate to have my children come up at least twice a month. And I had to keep them engaged in that visitation room. And I did that through art and literature. And Poetic Justice helped me create my storytelling. And I knew I was onto something special when my kids weren't running up to hug me. They were running up to frisk me for my next chapter, for the story that I was writing for them. It wasn't a struggle, that's not the right word. It was challenging to try to keep them engaged, but once I caught on to what they were into and started creating comic book characters and out of soda cans and just, I don't know, all these ideas I got from my weekly meetings at Poetic Justice, and it was just a snowball of good things. And I can't say it enough. My
Well,
children.
it paid off because you have such a great relationship with your daughters.
I told the people it doesn't come easily. You got to do the work. You don't just get in prison and sit down and do your time. You get in prison and you find out the positivity that'll keep you going, that you'll hang on to, and you find the right people, the right organizations. I'm telling you guys, Poetic Justice is where it's at.
So for any of you, how do you see sort of incarceration impacting families specifically?
I think we're locking up people, females, that we're mad at more than scared of. And that is just tearing us up, tearing our families apart, and costing the taxpayers so much money. I'm not negating my charge. I went to prison. I don't feel like my charge was excessive, my time was excessive. That family had to know that there was justice in this world. But I did the work, I did my time, and I'm ready to pay it forward.
You are.
I think the biggest thing is generationally. I was incarcerated for 2 years. My daughter's currently incarcerated and through the grace of God was given guardianship of my granddaughter. And because of the work that I was able to do in prison, my granddaughter will know a very different life. But it has to end.
Yeah.
It has to end. Like my daughter has to do the work too.
She is. You're an example
Right.
to your daughter that's incarcerated
That's
now on
changing.
how to do it.
It's changing the trajectory of my children and my children's children and hopefully their children for going forward. So, generation. Just generational trauma.
Yes, I think that's like something that we know enough about this, right? At this point, generational trauma, what it does, and not having your parents in the home, how impactful that is on children. I just, but somehow I feel like it's not talked about just enough. I came from a family that had an incarcerated loved one. My uncle was doing life without parole for a nonviolent drug crime. He was under a mandatory minimum. From the 90s, real bad stuff. We have gotten rid of those, thankfully. But, and he ended up in prison because most of his uncles and his father and generations before him had been in prison, and that was very on par for my family. And my mom was a very big advocate on his support and made sure to really make sure that he was still a part of our family. And she was on her way to visit him one Friday when she was in a one-car accident and died. The ripple effect that his incarceration had on my family is pretty unspeakable. So I ended up later living with my grandmother, her mom, and my uncle's mom, and to see her leave a visit room just in shambles because she thought her son was going to die in there for something he did too. He was selling drugs, he was addicted to drugs. To leave there each time, and then to spend the holidays without him and without her daughter, That was crushing for me, more so than not having my own mother present in a lot of ways, watching my family suffer, just from the pain, because I was, a child when she had passed. But my uncle did get a commutation, is out and thriving today, and lives with my grandmother, is doing wonderful. And it's like there is, this beautiful, like, restorative piece to that, but at the same time, we still, spend the holidays without my mom. And was she going to die on that day? Regardless, we'll never know, but it's undeniable that because of his sentence and his very, very excessive sentence, she was so driven to continue seeing him all the time. And would she have been going that day? We don't know. And I feel like that is something that if you don't have someone who's incarcerated, it can be very easy to kind of push that under the rug or not acknowledge what this does, not just to the children, but to the nieces, to the nephews, to the grandmas, to the sisters, the brothers. Impacts all of us.
So what do you think, beyond legislative efforts, which is I know where your mind and my mind goes a lot, just being attorneys, but what can the public do to support criminal justice reform, do you all think? How can we change this narrative? How can we change the attitude in Oklahoma so fewer women are sent to prison and the women that come out of prison are supported and feel loved and are successful? I hope you all have answers separately.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I think they're all pieces in the solution. And the more people that are involved in that, I think the barometer, the thermometer will change eventually. That I always think of the story of William Wilberforce and how he helped to bring about the end of slavery was through storytelling. And he felt like that was his role, and it took decades. It's not an easy fix, it's not an easy change, but I think just all of you hearing this, now that you've heard it, I hope that you won't walk away and say you haven't heard it. When you've seen the faces of the women in there, that you'll say, they are human beings that matter in this world. They're resilient, they're gifted, they're compassionate.
Amazing women.
Amazing women who deserve more than just being in prison.
I love my friends and my sisters there. And my heart is with them, and I'm going back on my own free will to help them. And I know that I'm meant for more. I haven't figured it out exactly yet, but I know this is the start, and being here right now is definitely the first step.
I think there's a lot of things that you just can do day to day, and changing the narrative. I don't use the word inmate. It's pretty dehumanizing. I don't like to refer to people just by their DOC numbers. They have names, human beings. Incarcerated individual, the longer, more syllables, but you'll live. Push back on that. You hear people using degrading terms like convict, inmate. No, not in front of me. We do need legislative changes. We need big things. But sharing the story of something you heard today, the posters, talking about poetic justice, building a community where, you don't have to police everything people are saying, but it's little things like that do make a difference, especially when you're talking to incarcerated people, when you are storytelling. I think, there are little things that we can all do each day.
I think too, we talked about legislative, but pretty soon there's going to be politicians coming to our town, right? Because we're getting a new governor soon, and the governors are going to politician right here in Claremore. Go and ask them, what do you think about criminal justice reform? What is your stance on continuing to reduce incarceration for women and men in our state? What changes do they have in mind to make? And keep that stance. And then sometimes too, you don't know, one day in prison, I just decided that I was gonna start calling everybody by their first name over the intercom. So now I say, Mary Jones, I have to say their number because there might be multiple Mary Jones. Mary Jones, 77777, please report to the chapel. And now it's really funny because it's taken off and a lot of the people are going. And you know what, it was just one little small change that I decided I'm just gonna branch out and try this. Because I want people to feel more humane than just a DOC number. And it's, so you don't know, but just be mindful, like one little change that you can make, and then just try it.
Words are powerful.
Yeah. I would say vote. Honestly, I don't take that right for granted. I can't vote for another 4 years because I'm still on the suspended sentence. But vote, because that's where change happens. And I think it's significant.
And pay attention to your local elections, like your
Yes.
local district attorney election.
Yes.
Yes.
If a lot of people don't have any idea the power that the district attorney has, it is a lot of power. I would pay attention, I would go to those forums, and I would ask questions. Speaking of questions, I left the appropriate amount of time for questions, Ellen. I know. Does anyone have questions? Or let me rephrase it. What are your questions? Because everyone's gonna have questions.
So you all kind of talked about coming out of incarceration and re-entry and trying to like maybe lower recidivism rates and stuff like that. What does that actually look like applying for housing and jobs, and like what actually do you do to help these women in that process?
Yeah, so I can speak to that, not as well as my reentry team could, but we have 2 dedicated case managers, and it's honestly really, that's a great question, because it's really wild to me how many barriers there are just to having what we call a first day out. So our case managers, if you just came out, they're taking you around Tulsa, they're signing you up for benefits basically, so you can get on food stamps because you don't have a job, you need food, getting you hygiene, clothing, a phone. They constantly are setting up emails. When's the last time you tried to do anything and you didn't, without an email? Like, you can't get gas basically without putting in an email, you know? Like, you can't apply for jobs, you can't do anything. So the tiniest things, and then everyone has, different needs. So evaluating those and looking at them. Luckily, we get to work with Justice Link, and they have a housing authority person on staff there, so we immediately set them up with that. If you are fortunate enough, Solutions. Oh yes, gosh, no, we do not work with housing authority. Housing Solutions. If you're lucky and you're going to somewhere like Rhonda Bear's program, like She Brews, they will also do things like that with you. But people who have supportive families and they're just going out back to their hometown or whatever, there can be a ton of barriers, especially if they're in a rural area. So on our end, we try to do that stuff remotely, which looks a lot like Walmart orders to your door for those basic needs. Basic needs is a huge thing that I think people don't really realize. It's
So
like
don't you guys also help with justice navigation? Like, so help them with the parole board if they do, I mean,
Yes.
Parole officers. Parole officers?
Yeah, parole officers, you help them with fines and fees.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a whole nother back end thing to it. So if you come out and you're on parole, you gotta go meet your PO within 24 hours, no excuses. So organizing transportation for that, organizing transportation for a bus pass, a bike, we do a lot of bikes. Making sure they know where their PO is, taking them to check in. I'm forgetting like so
Also,
many
well,
things.
one thing, and I think Ellen was alluding to it, so a lot of times people come out and there's still some legal issues, like fines and fees. I mean, we've had people with $75,000 in fines and fees. Really, truly, before I was an attorney and worked in this area, I thought it was like you went to prison and then you paid your debt so you got out. But no, I mean, you come out of prison with thousands and thousands and thousands of fines and fees that you have to repay, and it's impossible to get a job. Not impossible, it's very difficult to get a job. So a lot of times, anyway, there's a statute that's like not that well known, but if you've been paying for 2 years, regularly the court can waive some of your fines and fees. So we have an attorney that is dedicated to just helping people with the legal issues they face once they're released. So a lot of fines and fees, divorce, a lot of times you really need to get divorced. You've been, anyway, there's a lot of issues with that, divorce, child custody issues.
Detainers, you might have a pending case in another county that they don't care enough to come get you from prison for. So we'll go with you and take care of that. A lot of tiny little things, and every person is different. I mean, we've been at like some of the requests we get of people coming out prosthetic legs. We've got a couple of those, wheelchairs, crutches.
There's a lot of obstacles, and they're different for every person. So we try to help whatever the
We
obstacle.
talk about different for every person. When I got out, I had a serious problem with housing. I'm a violent offender. I know a lot of people gloss over that one, but I couldn't find housing. So when I finally did, through where I work, that was kind of a passion project of mine. So I've been systematically calling all the apartments. Do you take violent offenders? Do you take sex offenders? I know it's a taboo thing, but these people gotta have places to stay too.
But that is someone with a job and money to pay for an apartment. They
So
cannot
out of
find an apartment to rent.
200 that I have called, I have 12. So now when somebody comes down, a violent offender, do you know where? I've got this to give them, and it's a work in progress. I'm still working on it, and I know I'm not housing solutions, but I took the list that they had and I called them, and out of those, there was only 3. So something I'm working on.
And do you know that if you were to peek behind a bush and you get caught by a cop, that you're gonna have to register as a sex offender for the next 25 years?
If you're 18, your girlfriend's 17.
Yeah, I mean, you've had too much Dr. Pepper and you're just gonna slip behind this bush and be? Yes, well, that's 25 years for indecent exposure that you have to register as a sex offender. And what that means is, there is no place you can live within a city limit. You have to live out on the edge of town, makeshift tent, camper trailer with no electricity and stuff like that. You would not believe the way that the people have to live. And just because they have to register as a sex offender does not mean they're harmful. So you don't know. If someone has to register, you don't know if they're dangerous or if it was just somebody that urinated behind a bush. You have no clue what that is anymore because we treat them all the same and we don't give them housing. And
it can be scary. As a mother, I understand that fear. But as a formerly incarcerated female in the state of Oklahoma, who is also a mother of a violent offender, it's a real need.
It is, and you mentioned IDs. I think one of the things, I mean, you really can't, I've been even surprised at Justice Link how many, I think 76% of our clients need IDs, because you cannot do anything without an ID. And we have ordered birth certificates from every state in the United States and several countries, because you gotta start somewhere. And you've gotta have 2 forms of ID. I mean, it's very hard.
And it takes a while for them to come in. So months that you can be waiting.
Yes. And a lot of people don't have a stable address. We get everyone's mail. You should see our mail every day. It's like birth certificates coming in. Because there's not, I know poor Lisa gets the mail actually. I'm not, I actually complain about Lisa's like, yeah, I deal with the mail every day. So
The mail, yeah.
But I want to say too that the Department of Corrections has been working really hard to make sure that we have housing applications. So there's a thing called transitional homes or sober living in our state. Oxford homes are big. They're very AA, NA based. But you're talking probably 100 Oxford homes throughout our state. And then there's private homes like the Sheepers homes and different homes across our state. So we really try to make sure that every inmate does not have to leave prison without a place to go. Whether it's a volunteer that's working on it, all of our prisons have volunteer chaplains that come out and hang out in the chapel all day and make sure, I think Shantae, we saw about 60 people today and trying to get making sure housing. We can give people housing so you can bridge the gap between prison and at least get to what we call first base, a safe house. And then you can get the resources to help you, with the IDs and the things like that.
Next
So that's a
question.
great question.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
A loaded one.
Apparently we all have a lot to say.
Yeah, that's what I kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Who else?
yeah. So we're a small team in project commutation. So it's me and 2 other attorneys, and then 2 reentry case managers and a wonderful admin. And we have hundreds, so right now, currently, in our case management system, we have 8,000 clients. So that means.
How many have you gotten commuted since project commutation started in 2018?
Oh gosh.
546, I just
Yeah.
wrote the report.
Yeah, 546, which is over, so if you take it like how many years have we saved, that's over 10,000 years, for over 500 people.
You're amazing.
We printed it on a shirt, we thought it was so cool.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, we do.
Yeah.
No, but, so we have a big backlog, so it's slow, so say if I took your case today, it's gonna be 6 months before I start on your application, most likely.
But once you file it with the current board, how long does that take?
That takes 6 months. And then, document for first stage, right, you get 3 out of 5 favorable votes, and you gotta wait 90 days. Okay, so you're past first stage in January, you're not coming up for second stage until April. And then the governor has no time limit on how fast he has to act. Luckily, Governor Stitt has been acting, he has been speedy these days.
But we had a period in about 2020 where we had was it 1 year or 2 years, a year and a half?
It was like a year and a half.
Where he hadn't
didn't
signed
sign a single
any
one.
commutations. And so they've been approved by the Pardon and Parole Board, people are just waiting.
Yeah.
Because it's really nothing, your sentence is really not commuted until the governor commutes it.
Yeah.
It's just a recommendation, and people were just waiting, so.
Yeah.
He has gotten way better though, he's pretty fast now.
So, yes, all in all, it's a year and a half, sometimes a little quicker. But yeah, it's.
But also when your sentence gets commuted, understand too that sometimes the recommendation is to time served, which would mean you would leave immediately, or sometimes it is to a sentence that would discharge you right away. But a lot of times it is just a shortened sentence and you're really not released. It just puts you maybe in 2 or 3 or 5 years up for parole at some point.
Yeah. So
it varies.
It really is, but no less than a year usually. Yeah.
And so you're saying, because I know you said like something's just changed recently, so where they can't be charged as much or something like that. So everything that was like previously charged that much though, they don't look back at any of that stuff, do they? It's just like from then on.
They do when we make them.
Okay, yeah, that's
No, yeah, that's what commutation is for. So
Yeah.
that's how we utilize. So instead of making it what they would say retroactive in the legislature, and just releasing those people who would qualify, they said, oh, why don't you guys apply for commutation? And so that's where we came in largely, especially like 2019, 2020. Was it 2019? Governor Stitt did the largest commutation. Biden just beat it, but that was the largest commutation in
That was the first day I met Ellen.
So that was pretty cool. But that has not happened again. That was a single stage commutation docket. That hasn't happened again. So they have everyone go through that process. And if you don't make it through that process, even though your sentence is now not something you could receive, you still gotta serve it. Yeah.
There's one law that is hopefully gonna be retroactive, and it's the Oklahoma Survivors Act.
Oh, you still gotta go through.
You still have to
hear
apply.
it.
Right, but at least they'll consider people that are in prison.
Yes,
is
for sure.
And it's at the very beginning stages, but the first one that actually went before a judge, it was in a small town. And I think that was deliberate because the next one is hopefully Tulsa County. But those are women who have been victims of domestic violence, and it's been integral in the crime that was committed. And it's an act that they have to re-look at that. And the person, watching they get through the state legislature was wild. It was painful.
And I think one thing, yes, it is retroactive, so it applies to individuals that were victims or survivors of domestic abuse, but you still have to apply, and it goes to your judge, and you still have to have a hearing, and you also have to have evidence. And so that's one of the hard things. It was not, the first case was very intentional because there was a lot of evidence. it's hard. I mean, Morgan can speak this better than I can, but I think it's very tricky because a lot of survivors don't have a lot of evidence and did not tell anyone and just don't have any documented evidence, and so it makes it really tricky.
Well, the victims have to relive the hell over again, and it's so traumatic. It's such things that you would not want to hear once, let alone twice. And so what they have to go to, because you can imagine if you've been a victim of domestic violence and you protected yourself, and 35 years ago, 40 years ago in Oklahoma, we barely honor or respect domestic violence today, and we sure did not 35 or 40 years ago. And so when these women protected themselves and their children, then we incarcerated these women for life without the possibility of parole. So now 35, 40 years later, this bill has come out, the Survivors Act. But as they're saying, yes, you can qualify, but now you have to go to court, and it's like hearing it, the home hearing all over again, and having to relive all those moments of trauma, that it's horrific. And you're not even guaranteed it's gonna be a yes.
Well, you're not even guaranteed to get a hearing. I was gonna say, if you're lucky enough to have to relive all that trauma,
Yeah.
because you might not even get a hearing.
Yeah, and the next one coming up is going to horrific. The trauma is unbelievable. I don't even know that I can go and sit through it. It's too much. And she killed her abuser with the gun that he intended to kill her with. And she's been locked up ever since. And that's horrific.
Yeah, we are filing survivorship cases as well, because we didn't have enough to do. And the first one that I'll have a hearing on was actually a juvenile. She was 15. Her dad had her kill her stepmom. Rented her a car, gave her a gun, everything. He never served a day. She is well into her 40s.
I was gonna say, how long has she been?
And she went in at 15. The second one I filed was a case from 1981. The transcripts, I don't even know how to describe what that paper was. It wasn't paper. Yeah, it was gross feeling on my hands. And thank goodness that someone somewhere had shoved those transcripts in a box and put them in a warehouse in Tulsa County, because if they hadn't, then that woman would technically not have any evidence and her case wouldn't be getting re-looked at. But now she's in her 70s and she killed her very abusive husband. And she'll probably get out, knock on wood, hopefully. But I mean, if it hadn't been for someone putting those in a box, I mean, it's certainly, even though this is progress, the survivorship bill is a really great thing. It's, it's certainly not a get out of prison free card.
So we're running out of time because I have 3 minutes left. So, which went by really fast for me. So if you could, each of you share maybe one thing that you would like the audience to take with them, or maybe one thing that they can do to inspire change, what would you want that to be? Do you want to start? You're right there. Sure. Okay.
So I think one of the best things that we can do to inspire change is we talked a lot tonight about stories, is see people and hear people. The reality is we all have a story. We all have our own set of trauma, and really a lot of our people that are incarcerated in Oklahoma, it was one choice. It was one choice that ended them where they are. It could have been your sister, or your mother, or your child, or your aunt. One choice. So hear people. When you meet them, see them, and hear them, and get to know who they are. And then you'll be really surprised at the impact that not only makes on them, but the things that you may decide that you want to fight for, if you're able to do that.
I think one of the things I live by is judge not, lest you be judged. Because we don't know what we would do unless we were in their shoes.
Buy coffee from Shebers. Volunteer with Poetic Justice. I mean, find something that lights you up in a way that helps other people. I can promise you people in Oklahoma prisons aren't getting the attention that they need and deserve, and these organizations are doing the work, and like you can make a difference by simply choosing She Brews over Dutch Bros. No hate on Dutch Bros, but She Brews has fantastic coffee, so just go there. And then follow Poetic Justice on Instagram and figure out when you can volunteer, where you can, or I have fabulous art, and my colleague and great friend has beautiful jewelry from a Poetic Justice auction. And
I have both.
Yeah,
I'm
she
always the
has
highest bidder.
so
Don't
much-
mess with me at the auction.
so much stuff from the auction. It's very fun. So come.
Yeah, volunteering for Poetic Justice could be a small thing, like you wanna have a writing partner. We'll hook you up with a writing partner, and you can like exchange poems, or just stories, or just getting to know her. Just, it's an amazing program. Just come be with us.
Well, all of the above, and believe that you can make a difference. You know, when I started Poetic Justice, I had no idea what I was doing. You know, first day I walked into Tulsa County Jail, I literally had no idea, and I had lots of preconceptions. But you know what? Each one of you can make a difference in this world, and you know, God help us if this generation doesn't rise up, because we need to. You know, a lot of the problems that are out there are the result of my generation, the generation before, but you are a generation that can change things, and don't ever undervalue what you can do.
Beautifully said.
It's amazing.
That was beautiful. Thank